Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have Kathleen Donnelly Israel here. She is an author and she had an amazing experience walking the Camino, and she's here to tell her story. So, welcome to the show, Kathleen.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
So, tell us a little more about yourself and why you decided to experience the Camino and what happened.
I was taking care of my husband. He got Parkinson's disease, and I thought that we would be riding our bicycles across France in our old age, but that wasn't to be. And so I had to think of a new dream for myself. And so I just realized my microphone's not plugged in. Sorry. So I I had a friend who went on the Camino while I was taking care of him. I took care of him he had Parkinson's from 2001 till 2018, but he was totally disabled from 2010. And around 2013, my friend did the Camino. And even though she was walking with bloody feet and she got blisters and it was, pretty awful, I recognized she was doing something very special for herself. And so I thought, I'm going to do that. When Ron's done with his disease, I'm going to do that. So anyway, he passed away in August of 2018. And so I decided to go on the Camino. And around January, I started getting my stuff together, and I used to walk like 5 miles a day with my friend, like 3 times a week. And that didn't even make me break out a sweat. So I thought, well, I can walk 5 miles before lunch and 5 miles after lunch, and I can do this. And so that's why I knew I could do it. And I used to work at a horse ranch. I was a volunteer. I used to pick up the horse pucky, and I had a giant wheelbarrow for a horse pucky when I was working over there. So I got a really strong core. So that really helped also. And then my sister-in-law decided that I needed to walk up mountains. She's like, you're not walking up mountains. You need to walk up mountains. So she went and found all the mountains in San Diego, and we walked up them. And so that prepared me also. And I went and got my stuff together, like my, I tried on and bought 4 packs before I got the right one. And so, I just took them back to REI and tried another one. And I bought all these clothing that hardly weighs anything. And I went to a lecture at the library, and the lecture lady said, she showed us, like, here's a shirt and here's a lightweight shirt. So we felt them. And so kind of got an idea of what I was looking for. And I tried to buy clothing that's sunscreen clothing, just trying to accumulate everything I needed. So the idea for over there is to pack very lightly, so you won't have a trouble walking. I guess I have a sister, and a cousin. Actually, she's my niece. Yeah, I have a niece who does backpacking, and she looks at my little pack that hardly weighs anything, and she's like, oh my goodness, you're not even backpacking, because she takes all her food and her tent and everything with her. But you don't need to do that over on the Camino. You can just walk between the albergues, and you buy food there, so you don't have to take food with you. So it's just like really cool. So in March, I bought my airplane ticket and I was ready to go. And I went to Paris first and stayed there for a week. And then to so I wouldn't have jet lag. And then I took a little puddle jumper plane over to Biarritz and took a taxi to Bayonne, and that's where the train to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port is. So that's what I did, and I started the Camino in Saint-Jean.
So it sounds like you put a lot of thought into getting ready for your trip. I would have done the same thing because I wouldn't want to carry a heavy pack. So I would have packed as light as possible.
Yeah, it's like a science. I took 1 bar of soap and I washed my hair, washed my body, washed my clothes, and washed my teeth with that same bar of soap.
So
So
how many miles are we talking about for people who are not familiar with the Camino?
it's 500 miles. Actually, it's 498 or 89 or something like that. So
Hmm.
it's almost 500 miles from Saint Jean to Santiago. And you start in France and you walk over the Pyrenees, and then you keep going across the Meseta. And it's just really charming. The route was started in the 1200s, and people started doing the Camino to St. James grave back
Now,
in the
where do you
1200s.
start in France? Because I've been to southern France.
Yeah, it's no yeah, southern France, right. Yeah, you start um I don't know, that they call it the French way. So you
Hmm.
start in France and go over the Pyrenees.
Yeah, so
That
where's the nearest town or city that you start from in France? Do you remember?
it it's Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port is the city you start in. I don't know what's
Okay.
near there. Well, Bayonne and Biarritz, that's where you take the plane into the Biarritz.
Yeah.
So I didn't know those places. They weren't
Yeah, that's not any of
places
the
I
towns that I was in. I was in France like 5 years ago.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. So wow, what did your friends think about or your family think about your plans? Did they say, "Are you nuts? Why are you doing this?"
I have 5 kids and they were all supportive. They were like so glad I was doing something because I took care of my husband for so long, and they were glad I was uh, just doing something wonderful.
Yeah,
And
something
I
for
told them all
yourself.
about it. And I was not afraid. I went by myself and I walked by myself. And every once in a while I met somebody and we walked together for a while, but not very much.
Mhm. So how many miles a day were you walking?
In the beginning, it was 10 miles a day, 5 miles before lunch, 5 miles after lunch, until one day I got the whole 10 miles before lunch. And I'm like, ooh, I must be buff now.
Mhm.
You're walking along, you just get good. And and so at that point I started walking. Well, I think the the 10 miles was really 13K, I think, something like that. And so I started walking 18K a day. So
Mhm.
anyway, that's like 15 miles, maybe. I don't know, something like
Wow.
that. Um, but usually when I like I'm walking around here uh, around San Diego, 13K is about the top of my, I mean, 13 miles is about the top of what I will do before I start spending myself.
Yeah.
After that, I'm just like, oh man, I got to keep walking and 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. But walking is a real low tech skill. You can pretty much walk 1 foot in front of the other for quite a while.
Yeah, the most I've walked was 8 miles, and it was for a charity event, and I was
Oh,
done.
yeah,
But I wasn't
yeah.
training like you were. But so how was the weather and what was the terrain like?
I went in spring. So it was rainy. The rain in Spain is mainly on the plain, right?
Hmm.
So it was rainy. It was cold, like some days when I would start, it would be 39 degrees when I started. One day I was 35 and warmed up to 39, and I was just like, oh man, this is cold.
Mhm.
But that's why one thing I did was I cooked a potato in the microwave before I left. And then I had that nice warm potato to hold while I was walking. And then, or I'd put it in my pocket and then I would eat it along the way. It was nice and warm.
That's a really good idea.
So, and yeah, it was so beautiful because it was spring and there were flowers, so many beautiful flowers. One of the flowers there is the red poppy, and it's just gorgeous. Every once in a while you see a whole field of red poppies, and then other times you just see, like walking through a town, there'd be like a little one bush of red poppies over there, coming up through a crack in the in the ground. It's very old. I'm thinking the houses were there really since the 1200 or something. It was really like you would see houses that were really old, and then they would build another part on, like maybe the old part was a ruins, so it would be kind of like curved, like old brick, old brick, old brick, and then up here is like new brick, new brick, new brick, and straight, and this is all, uneven, and this is all even, and it was just one house. So there was a lot of that going on too.
Yeah, it's amazing how much more history they have out in Europe than we do. Like I've been all over Europe, except for Germany. For some odd reason, I never made it to Germany. Um,
Mm.
but like here, people think a house in the 1800s is old, but then you go to Rome and you stand next to the Colosseum, and that is built what, 89 AD, I think. So we're talking more than 1,000 years old. So it's kind of mind-boggling when you go out
Right.
there, right?
Right. And yeah, and there are, I mean, the Colosseum is a ruins. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not all there. I mean, it is from the outside, I guess. Maybe it's anyway. Uh, yeah. So there are a lot of ruins. And then, like I say, a lot of refitted old buildings. But I used to go to school in Switzerland, and one of the ladies said, you Americans, you think, I went to America and you're talking about your 1800s buildings, and you guys have no idea what old is, and I said, well, your old buildings are our old buildings because that's where, a lot of our ancestors came from. Is we left our old buildings behind and went to the new world.
Yeah. And we actually have really old structures in North America, but they've kept it hidden from the public.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. So we
tell
have
me.
we have dolmens in this country out in Montana, and I've been out to see them twice.
Hmm.
So they don't even know how old it is, but they're man-made and they're huge,
Wow.
huge. And it's not a secret. You can go to montanamegaliths.com, and Julie Ryder's the woman that discovered a lot of these places. She's a medicine woman recognized by the Native American tribes out there. And although she's white, but she's been going out there finding these places, documenting it online, and she was taking people out there for a while till she got in trouble.
Oh.
Because not, but we do have those structures, and it's sad how they've suppressed it in this country.
Well, like you say, yeah, for the protection. I mean, really, the our civilization has really destroyed so much of the Indians,
Yeah,
um,
deliberately they destroyed things too.
or just because they're stupid. That's all, well, yeah, deliberately. Yeah, you're right
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were trying to wipe it out and
That
wipe them out.
that's ah, ah, you know, history. What
I
are
know.
they
All the history
doing?
that you learned was wrong.
Oh my gosh. Lord have mercy.
So, how long did it take you to walk the whole Camino?
I was on the Camino for 66 days, which is a long time. But
Okay.
I took Holy Week off, and then I, after a while, I was, walking, and I would get in and I would to the albergue, and I would be so tired. I would just lay down and take a nap. And then I would forget to ask, where's, is there mass services somewhere? And I would like miss mass on Sunday. And so I'm like, gee, I'm on this holy pilgrimage. I'm not even going to church on Sunday. And so at that point, I decided I'm spending 2 nights spending Saturday night and Sunday night in one place. So I'm not tired for church on Sunday. So that took every week I took a day off, actually became a tourist on that day. And so there were reasons why it took me 66 days. Actually, I got sick a couple of times too, and I had to stay without walking for a few days a couple of times.
So, did you have to reserve like a hotel to stay at, or it could be very spontaneous?
Both. There were places that would not take a reservation, and so you had to just walk there and hope they had a place. But other places you could make a reservation. And when I went to that lecture at the library, she told me, okay, so set up your first 3 nights. So, you know, and then you can make your reservations after that or not. Either way, there were people who said, no, I don't want to make a reservation. I just want to walk and find a place to stay. And that's how they did their whole walk. But so many times I would, I called the night before, and, eh, using my Spanish, quiero una cama para esta noche. And so I would get a bed for the night at a place. And invariably, when I got there, they would say, we're full. And I'd say, I have a reservation. And they asked me my name and they let me in. So that told me, yeah, you need to get a reservation.
Yeah. So, there were people who walk it, do they actually camp out sometimes?
They tell you not to.
Hmm.
And, when I first got there, I was looking around thinking, well, how do I know I'm going to get a place? If some of them don't take reservations. And
Yeah, see, that would
so
cause me anxiety.
I know I was looking around at the terrain and thinking, oh, okay, well, there's a porch. I could sleep under that porch, or, things like that, because they tell you you can't camp. They don't let you camp. They
Yeah,
don't
it's
want
probably
you
not
to.
safe. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it's just an eyesore. A lot of people are litter bugs, and boy, it would be really littered if people did that. I took all my stuff with me, like if I had to go in the bushes, I had a bag to put my paper in and stuff. I didn't leave anything myself, because here in California, like it's $1,000 fee to litter or something like that. So we don't litter too much here anyway. There are some people who do, but
Do they actually enforce it though?
if they see you, but I would say no,
See, we
because
have
usually
so many rules. We don't have a lot of rules or laws here in South Carolina, but nobody enforces it. So nobody follows it.
well, I was horrified when I saw the litter on the Camino. Like, you're walking along and there's no restrooms there, and you have to go
Yeah.
find the bush in the bushes. So I would like be looking for some bushes to go behind, and I was just horrified at all the toilet paper everywhere in these
Mm.
little places behind bushes, that you go to. And at first I thought, oh man, I got to I got to clean this up. And then I thought, no, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's dangerous. So after a while, when I would like go in the bushes and I would see a bunch of toilet paper and I'd be like, oh, this is a good place to go, but I never left my paper. I always took it out.
Yeah, France is like that too. Like, because it's so rural in southern France, there was never any bathrooms. And we were on a guided tour, and the tour guide was male. So he kind of dropped the ball on the whole bathroom thing in general. But like after 9 days of peeing in the bushes, I was tired of it.
Well, as women, we need to wear a skirt. And I did not
Mm,
know that.
mm-hmm.
And so um, halfway through, I actually, or I don't know, I guess it was more than halfway through, but I took a pair of my pants and made a skirt out of them. I cut the legs off
Yeah.
right below the pocket, so I'd have the pocket intact. And I cut the legs in half and cut them apart and sewed them together and sewed them on there. So I had a skirt because I got really tired of bearing my butt every time I had to pee. So a skirt is recommended, not a skirt, because you still have to bear your butt, but
So
but
would
a
you
skirt.
wear like could you wear like pants and have a skirt over it?
Yeah, like a lot, like absolutely. And then
Yeah,
that would be good.
that's a
Um,
really good idea. I don't understand the whole lack of bathroom thing in Europe. Like it's not, I'm not popular. That's not, that was definitely not a benefit to me because I was like, people need to go to the bathroom and you're gonna make them go. Or I mean, I get like bathrooms get gross, but you know,
Well, that was the good thing about having a bar in every town, because
yeah,
I would be walking along and if I had to go, I'm like, okay, well, I have to go into this bar, buy a coffee, and then I can use their bathroom.
yeah.
And, uh, so that was good. But if there wasn't any, I was, uh, one time I was walking along and there was no town close at all. And I had to go and I'm like, I used to, when I go camping here, I would find a log and put my butt over the edge and go and so I was looking for a log and I saw some rocks, so I sat on this rock and I sat way back and I was I was going and this guy came by. I saw him coming and I'm like, oh man. So so I kind of grabbed a sandwich and put a scarf over me and acted like I was just sitting there eating my sandwich. And then when the guy walked by, he goes, "Oh, I thought you were taking a wee," and I said, "I am." And then he started laughing. He said, "Well, thank you for that." It's like, oh my gosh. Another time I had to go and I was along a freeway. There were no bushes. There wasn't anything. And so I had a raincoat on. It was raining and I had a raincoat on and I'm like, well, this raincoat is kind of like a skirt. It's kind of around me. So
Mhm.
I, sat down on this little pillar by the road and the wind came up and just blew my poncho up over my head. And this truck came by and he was honking his horn and I was like, well, I'll never see him again. So it was pretty interesting, I should say.
What kind of shoes did you wear?
I love Basque hiking boots. Some people wear like just walking shoes or running shoes, and a lot of people swear by them, but I have a foot problem. And so I thought I need the support of some hiking boots. And I bought, so I had a pair of Basque hiking boots, and I thought, well, I need waterproof hiking boots. So I bought another pair just so I could have the waterproof. and I found out they were not waterproof. They just filled right up with water.
Oh
Um,
no.
and so, but it was good because if you have, I mean, I found out later, if you have waterproof shoes, they don't breathe and it's easier to get blisters if your shoes aren't breathing. So it turned out good. I mean, my feet were wet, but at least they weren't, I didn't get blisters.
Yeah. Yeah. And you use the same pair of shoes for the whole trip?
Yeah. So what you do is you got your hiking boots or whatever you're going to wear for hiking, and then you have a pair of shower shoes. And so, like in the evening, you can wear your shower shoes if your feet are tired of being in your hiking boots. But
Hmm.
that's what you have. Like, I mean, you go to Europe. I mean, it's kind of a big deal to go to Europe from the US, and all you have is hiking boots and shower shoes with you because you don't
Yep.
want to carry anything.
Right.
And yep, that's what I did. And um, I actually went again. I did the Camino in Portugal last year, 2001,
Hmm.
and I took some Crocs for my shower shoes. Before I had these other slip-on ones. And so I took Crocs because they hardly weigh anything. And they were actually shoes I could wear. I mean, I even hiked up a mountain in my shower shoes. I mean, my Crocs one
Oh,
day.
wow.
Yeah, and they were comfortable. I could have worn them the whole time, really. But
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
popular now. I see like teenagers wearing Crocs now.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I have to wear an orthotic. I have a foot problem. And so the Crocs kind of go up on the back and they're up on the front. So you can wear an orthotic in your Crocs too.
Hmm.
So that was really good because I I can't really, it's just painful to walk around without my orthotic. So
Yeah. So what did you learn from the experience? What did you get out of it? How did it change you?
it changed me. Well, one thing, it did get me away from my home, which is like my house is was full of my husband's stuff, and I was trying to get rid of it, and it was painful to get rid of it. And oh my gosh, so it took me away from that situation
Yeah.
for, actually I was gone for 3 months. So that was good. And then the other thing that I learned is that I can take care of myself. So when I got married, I just went from my mother's house to my husband's house. And even though we were both kids and we did make our life together, I was never alone. I never had to be the only one, taking care of me.
Yeah.
And yeah, with 5 kids, I took care of people, but not myself. So I took care of myself, and it was like I believed I could do it, but afterwards I knew I could do it, you
Right.
know.
Hmm.
So I never thought I couldn't do it. I was very careful to not fall. When my husband died, my son said, before he went home after the funeral, he goes, "Okay, mom, you're gonna have a good life here. Don't fall."
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
paramedic, so he picks people up off the ground all the time,
Hmm.
and he knows what happens. So I've been always very careful not to fall. And while I was on the Camino, I was afraid to, I mean, I wasn't really afraid, but I just very careful not to fall.
And you
I
never did?
I did actually fall gracefully, slowly, like
Hmm.
I lost my balance, and I did fall slowly to the ground, but it wasn't like I fell. It was just like, but I was walking along on. I was walking on this. I mean, it was a downhill, and all of a sudden, the road, the trail was over these rocks that weren't laying flat. They were standing on end, and they were all uneven at the top, and you're trying to walk on them. And I was like, yeah, I can't do this. And so I just sort of fell, kind of. And then I just didn't get up. I just scooched my way down on my butt the whole rest of the way. And it was quite a ways. And when I got to the bottom, I was very glad I didn't have holes in my pants, but I just was like, I'm not falling. I'm not
That's
going to
why
do
you need to
this.
wear a skirt over pants in case you have to scoot
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. I had, because that's what I brought with me was pants.
Yeah,
And I had, kind of high tech pants from REI that were lightweight, but they were um, sturdy, I guess I would say.
yeah,
And they didn't even act like maybe they were going to get a hole in them. They were good. So
yeah, that's
yay.
good. So you had a poltergeist experience. So why don't I'd love to hear that story.
Oh yeah, in my house when my children were growing up. Actually, we bought my grandmother's house when we had bought this brand new house, and my husband told my grandmother, if you ever want to sell your house, we want to buy it. He
Hmm.
didn't ask me about it. He just told her that. And so she got sick and she thought she was dying. And she called my husband up and said, okay, I'm ready to sell you my house. And he was like, oh, great. So we sold our house, and then we bought my grandmother's house. And when I was maybe 13 or something, I had an experience at my grandmother's house that my uncle died. And he had this bedroom at my grandmother's house. She was taking care of him, or, she was living with her brother. And I remember going into his room. We went in to say goodbye to my Uncle Val. And I remember he was laying there in the bedroom with a red blanket over him. And he was talking really weird. He thought they came from Hungary. And so he thought we were his nieces and nephews in Hungary. And he was telling us to make sure we took care of the chickens while because he knew he was dying. And
Hmm.
and my grandmother said he's just a little bit out of his mind, but he just thinks you're the kids in Hungary. So that was part of it, actually. So when we moved into that house, I didn't realize why I kept buying things for the room that were red. And it didn't occur to me, the red blanket on my uncle, but I put red carpet in there, and I bought red sheets for the kids' beds. And one day, my daughter was crying at night, and she said, I went in and she said, "Mommy, I hear breathing." And I'm like, then at that point, I thought, oh yeah, this is where her bed was where the head of his bed when he died. And
Hmm.
so I just took the bunk bed and put it on a different wall, and I never heard anything about it after that. Well, my sister came and lived with us. Um, and so we had a little cottage out back, and so they lived in the cottage for a while. And she always said, Kathleen, you have ghosts in this house. There's spirits here. They're not good. We need to get rid of them. And I'm like, well, I never thought that myself, except for that breathing situation. Um, Another time I went in the kid's bedroom, my son was crying, and I went in there and he was in the bottom bunk. And I felt like there was all these things hanging down, like they were dirty rags hanging down from the bed up above, uh, uh, like covering him. And so when I went in there, I had to take my hands and pull them away so that I could get to him. And that was really weird too. Uh, and then anyway, so that was weird. So my sister went to this charismatic church, and she had this minister that she wanted to come out and have him cleanse the house. I'm like, okay. And so he came out, and we were all sitting around in the front room, and he said, well, I don't feel any spirits. And I said, well, I don't either. And then Maureen said, yes, there's spirits here. And so he just went around and blessed all the lintels of the house. He blessed the top of all the doorways in the house.
Mhm.
And when he got to that bedroom, he went inside and he was saying his blessing on the room. And then all of a sudden, he put his hand out straight out, and um, he said, halt or something like that. And he said, I bind you. Something he said, he bound the spirit up and he sent it away.
Mm.
And and then when the spirit left, my daughter in the next room was crying, and I was so angry. I was like, that spirit touched my baby. And I was like, oh man. Um, um, so anyway, the house was cleansed. That was where it was, in that bedroom. And it was like a hangers on from my uncle, I guess. But when my brother was a kid, our family had 6 children. It was very noisy in my mother's house. And my
Mhm.
brother, when he was going to college, he went and lived with my grandmother because so he could have quiet while he was studying. And he was supposed to sleep in that room, but he would never sleep in there. He went in there and he's like, no, I'm not sleeping in here. He slept on the couch in the front room or in the family room. And so that was kind of a weird thing too. So I told Jim about the poltergeist that left, and he got mad at me. He's like, you mean you got rid of Uncle Val? Like I had, now Uncle Val's out there and he doesn't have a place to stay, and he was angry with me. And so I told Maureen about that, and she talked to Barry, the minister, and he said, no, it wasn't Uncle Val. It
Mhm.
was a spirit that had attached itself to Uncle Val, and we got rid of that spirit.
What
So
kind
maybe
of
that
minister was he? What church?
it was a um, it was a charismatic church. I mean, we're Catholic, and Maureen didn't give up her faith. She was still Catholic. She still went to the Catholic church, but they went
Mhm.
to this. I think it was a church without a building, so they called themselves a church, and they
Mhm.
got together in each other's homes. And he
But was
was
it
their minister. I
Catholic?
mean, they tithed to him and stuff. Um,
Was he Catholic or he was another kind of
I
Christian pastor?
I don't think so. I don't think he was Catholic.
Mm. Well, he seemed like he knew what he was doing.
Right. That's what because she knew that. She knew he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Hmm.
And
That's interesting. I've never had a poltergeist activity around me, but I've had things moved and go
really,
missing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like actually, since I brought up Montana, the last 2 times I went to Montana, my keys got moved.
oh,
And it was really obvious. Like,
where were you when they were moved? Were
so
you in?
my friend and I stayed at a haunted hotel.
Oh, oh gosh.
Yeah.
You are brave. Oh my goodness.
Well, there's a lot of haunted places, but like, the spirits are always around. But
Yeah,
she like
that's true.
there this was in the middle of nowhere, so there's not a lot of choices for places to stay.
Mm,
And this was near a location that we wanted to visit. So I have my ways of dealing with that kind of activity. But
mm,
when I was driving an SUV and we drove from the airport to the hotel and pulled into the parking lot, and we decided to go inside and check in without our luggage and check our rooms to see if we liked it.
mhm.
So I took the keys out of the ignition and I locked, when we walked away, we locked the door and I made that chit chit sound.
Uh-huh.
She heard it too because I verified. I said later she heard that locking sound, and I put the keys in my backpack. And then we checked in and went to our rooms, and rooms were fine. So I started looking for the car keys to go back to the car. I couldn't find them.
Mm.
And so I had this little blue backpack, and I threw everything on the bed, you know, and I couldn't find it. And I told my friend, I was like, I can't find the keys. I know I put them in the backpack. And I said, you heard me lock the car, right? And she said, yeah, I heard it. So she's calm, she's like, let's go back to the car and look around. Well, we walked back up to the car, and it was unlocked and the keys were in the console.
Oh man.
And then I said in my head, because, spirit can hear your thoughts. I said, don't ever do that again. If you mess with me again, you'll regret it.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did.
Well,
And
did
nothing
you
else happened.
have a plan for the for the regret? Did you have a
Well, I have guardians, so I can always
yeah.
call in my protection and my guardians and stuff. Um, but yeah, nothing else happened for the rest of the week.
Well, that's good. Boy, after my husband died, after they took him away, and the next day, every time I went into the bedroom, the door was open. I mean, that door to the outside was open, and I would go over and close it. And then I would go back in there again, and the door was open. And after about 3 times of that, I just said, okay, Ron, don't creep me out.
Yeah.
and and I went
But
and
he's
locked the
he's
door.
trying to tell you he's still around.
Yeah.
So once you get the message, right, you say, okay, I get it. But the second time I went to Montana, I stayed at a hotel, and I lost my keys in my suitcase. Like, I had keys in my suitcase, and it
Uh-huh.
completely disappeared.
Oh gosh.
And I'm kind of mad about that because I had like my car keys in there. But I don't
Right.
know. I didn't even take them out of the suitcase because I didn't use those keys. You know what I mean? They were like my home keys. Yeah, but every time I go to Montana, maybe they don't want me to leave because they keep taking
Oh,
my
that's a
keys.
sweet thought. That's a
I
sweet
don't
thought.
know. I don't like that though. So,
No.
yeah, and I went last summer to Montana and Utah. My friend and I stayed at a Airbnb for one night in the mountains in Utah, and my
Uh-huh.
cell phone levitated to another location in my room. I didn't
Um,
see it happen, like I said, it just ended up in a different place. So, when you go to sleep and you put your phone next to you, right?
right.
Everybody does that when you travel,
Yeah.
right? Because that's your alarm clock. People look at their phone all the time. So I didn't plug in my phone because it was already fully charged. I just turned it off and put it on the nightstand next to me. Well, in the morning, I woke up and my phone was gone.
Oh man.
And so and I'm looking around the bed, and I had like this small green backpack that I used, just for overnight things. And it was at the foot of the bed. And when I moved the backpack, the cell phone was right there on the floor.
On
There
the
is
floor.
no way, unless I am sleepwalking, which I don't do, that phone, and I would have put that phone there on the floor.
Yeah. Right.
So I told my friend who's sleeping downstairs, I said, yeah, I think I'm ready to go. I was glad I
Right.
wasn't staying there for another night.
Yeah, that would, I mean, I have been in situations where I suppose there were spirits. And really, when I go to a hotel and you don't know what's gone on in that hotel, especially an old place, there's
Yeah.
probably stuff has gone on, you know.
Well, this was like an A-frame cabin next to the owner's house. So
Yeah.
literally you could walk like 20 steps to the owner's house from there. But it was odd. Like, it was beautiful, but it was weird. I don't know
Mm.
what was going on with that place, but
You can feel stuff, you can
mhm,
feel stuff.
yeah.
I know in my life, I have, in the past, I had a rough childhood. And so I have been attracting really crummy experiences all my life because I've been sending out all these negative vibrations because it's been crummy since the beginning, you know.
Yeah.
And I attracted all kinds of hangers on
Mhm.
that sort of recognized my sadness and were attracted to me, and just, you know, they were all around me. And people, I mean, this is what I think. I don't see spirits, but our spirits see the spirits of other people, you know, and people just didn't like me. And I didn't know why. I just figured I was inferior or something. I don't know. But I noticed that people didn't like me. And so but I think that's why, because I had all those hangers on from just being sad all my life and
Yeah.
attracting them. And I had this really great thing. I did this ho'oponopono,
Hmm.
and it actually cleared them away from me. And I don't have those spirits anymore. And I'm always like trying to make myself happy. I mean, of course, if something's sad, I feel the sadness, but if I don't need to participate in it very long, I try and let it go as quickly as possible so I can be happy, so I can bring in the good experiences. I'm really kind of done with attracting crap in my life.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I didn't have more hangers on as a child, just because I was a very fearful child,
Mm,
because I'm very sensitive. So I felt, I was scared of the dark and I was scared of the woods and, I was scared of a lot of things. So, but I chalk it up to my guardian angels that they just didn't allow anything to attach to me. But yeah, they did the superb job
all right.
because I grew up in New York City. Can you imagine? Like, you got
It's
a lot of humans, you got a lot of spirits, and a lot going on there, a lot of stress, a lot of negativity and darkness, and
right.
I pretty much got through it unscathed. It's just I was very fearful because I would feel a lot of things. Like at night, I would feel like I wasn't alone, and I would feel like I was being watched. And when I was in the
Mm,
woods, I felt like I was being watched. And, I'm sure everybody thought I was like, you know, the least courageous kid, scared of
oh,
everything.
you sound very courageous to me.
Now I am, because I
uh,
know what I'm dealing with and I've practiced and I'm empowered now. But when you're a child, you
right,
know, and I'm very different from the rest of my family. So they either deny that they're feeling anything, or they're afraid, or, well, they're afraid too, but there's no one to really teach me, hey, Tina, I feel this too, or like
right,
what you're feeling is I'm feeling it too. No one ever said that, but I had a lot of friends that had seen ghosts and stuff and told me stories, and I started believing in them because, of course, I've been feeling it my whole life, but they had seen them. And so I was like, why would my friends lie to me? They're my best friends. So I had no choice but to believe them. Right.
right, right. And you felt it too. I mean, it's not like it wasn't visceral or something. I know that little part about the story that those things hanging down
Yeah.
around my
What was
son's bed.
that?
And I told him about it. I mean, we didn't really discuss it at the time. I just held him and, sang to him. But I told him about it later, and he goes, "Mom, why didn't you tell me? I saw that too." So I mean, I didn't even, I was just trying to comfort him. I wasn't, but I just put that back in my mind, and I just thought it was weird. And like a mother would just go in after her child, even though there was weird stuff in the way. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
this isn't scaring me at all. Here's my kid. I'm going
Right.
there.
Right. You're going to do what you need to. But was it actually physical rags or?
it was, in the middle of the night. Yeah, it looked like they were, some of them were gossamer. It was just like rags, like,
It's weird.
yeah, just cloth that was dirty, and hanging, and, like pieces of cloth that were hanging. I could make my way through it like this. I could
Yeah.
push them aside.
It's another thing about me when I was younger, and I'm still like this, but if I saw something scary, I couldn't get the picture out of my mind.
Uh,
It would literally stick in my mind. And I have a young daughter, she's the same way.
yeah,
So I tell her, be very careful about what you're watching or if you see something scary, because she said to me before, I can't stop seeing it. And I was the same way. I couldn't stop seeing that scary face or that scary vision or whatever. So,
yeah. My daughter did that too. I remember one time she said, Mom, every time I close my eyes, I see these eyes looking at me.
yeah,
And yeah, I don't know,
I
maybe she still sees them.
I see
I don't know.
them.
Do you?
I see like lights, but that form into eyes and a mouth and a nose, and sometimes they turn into faces, but I accept that. It's like nothing that's gonna hurt me. I'm just kind of seeing stuff.
It's just disturbing, that's all. Just
Yeah, and when you're a
disturbing.
kid, it's terrifying. You're like, what the, and then what the heck is this? Let me just go to sleep.
Yeah, like she just didn't want to close her eyes. I mean, what do
Yeah,
you do if you don't want to close your eyes, especially if you're a child? It's scary. I didn't really know what to do about that. I just hugged her, and I didn't have that skill what to tell
yeah.
her.
I didn't have a lot of nightmares as a kid, but I remember the ones that I did have where you're literally wake up screaming.
Mm,
And I had this nightmare where I saw this, I think it was like a red velvet curtain, and there were all these eyeballs on it,
on
like
it.
blinking eyes on it. And I woke up screaming, and I
Right.
realized what I was dreaming is that I was feeling like I was being watched all the time.
Oh, those eyes.
They
Yeah.
were always like watching me, except, I had a nightmare about it.
Oh, it's just like, oh my goodness. Anyway, we somehow make our way through this stuff that's really going on out there that we have no idea what it is. I know um I have a thing that I do with, like, I will get just kind of sad or something, and I it's uncomfortable. And so what I do is I take my hand, I put it, let me see, I put it on my chest, and then I put the
Mhm.
other hand right over it, and I push whatever it is away, and then I zip myself up like this. And it's like pushing anything that's not me away from me,
Yeah,
and then zipping myself up. And when I do that, like the colors get brighter and stuff. It's like I had something around me that wasn't okay.
yeah.
And so I get rid of it. And then I can be happy more easily when I do that.
There's a statement that I recently learned to say that I really like. You can just say it out loud or to yourself if you're feeling uncomfortable for whatever reason in a location or around certain people or in your house. You can say, if you're not here for my highest good, you must leave.
Mm, right. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Uh, and you kind of have to maybe say it with authority.
yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be empowered. You have to believe you can command your space. You can command what you're going to experience. And you can't be afraid at all. Like the more afraid you are, the weaker you will appear. So you really have to be like, that's why I said when my keys went missing,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I said, don't mess with me or you'll regret it.
Mm.
So I was really standing in my power saying, don't do this again.
And like the angels have to have us come, invite them in. So
Mhm.
maybe the other spirits that aren't angels, maybe they have to go if we say so, you know.
Yeah, they do. For sure. So you wrote a book about your Camino experience. So you can tell us about the book and where listeners can get a copy.
Yeah, it's well, the name of the book is Wisdom on the Camino, and the subtitle is A Spiritual Journey, Sharing Forgiveness and Possibilities to Inspire the Rest of Your Life. And I really believe that, by Kathleen Donnelly Israel. And while my husband was ill, I actually studied online healers, because I had that post-traumatic stress disorder. So I felt like God kept sending me healers, and I would buy their little program and do it until it was boring, and then God would send me another one. And I just, over the years, I mean, I had to be there, so I had time to do that. And over the years, I just sort of developed my own philosophies, and synthesizing what I had learned from all those teachers. And so I felt like I wanted to write a book about my philosophies. And then I was just like, I don't want to seem all teachy. And so I remembered I told people about those things on the Camino, because the pilgrims talk to each other. We just share. And if we see a person with a problem, maybe this is how I handled that. And
Hmm.
a lot of my philosophies are about how to handle problems, because I had so many problems. Um, so I wrote the book about walking the Camino and telling people about those things. And so so you can get it on Amazon.
Hmm.
Wisdom, you just put wisdom and you push C, and it comes up with Wisdom on the Camino. So it comes up. And Kathleen Donnelly Israel, Donnelly's my maiden name, and my husband's name is Israel. I have a website, wisdomonthecamino.com,
Hmm.
and you can get it. There's a link to the Amazon one, but it's really easy to go to Amazon, and I have it, um, a digital book and a physical book. The cover is really cool. The guy who did my cover, I have a picture of me, and then on the inside of it, he's got another picture of me walking towards you inside that picture, and it's really cool.
Yeah, let's see it again because you held it up.
Yeah, so here's
That
me.
looks like a big backpack to me.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
it was everything I needed. I actually did have a few things that I didn't need in there, and I didn't know I didn't need them. So when I
Yeah.
got to Astorga, I sent like a liter and a half full of stuff back to my house in San Diego. Um, so this was actually taken on the first day of my trek, that picture there.
How heavy was your pack? Did you weigh it?
Um, it was uh, it was a 36-liter pack, and it was 10 kilos, which I don't know what, I weighed it the first day, when I was signing in at the pilgrim office. I weighed my pack, and it was 10 kilos. And that's without water. Of course, water is like the most heavy thing you can have, but you have to have
Yeah.
water.
Was there
And
places to fill up for water?
there were, but they said if it doesn't say potable water on it, don't don't use
Yeah.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's fountains in all the towns, but if it doesn't say potable, don't drink it.
So that's
Uh,
actually 22 pounds.
22 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. Without my water, huh?
Yeah, without your water. So
When
that's,
when I was a teenager, I used to backpack, and they said that our pack could be a quarter of our weight. So that was quite a bit less than a quarter of my weight.
mhm,
22. Yeah, probably. Well, anyway, I had when I was like 18, I had a 25-pound pack because I weighed
mhm.
and I weighed 110 back then. But then I had, a tent in my pack, and I had food for the week type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Uh, So,
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen, for sharing your stories and your experience on the Camino and some of your paranormal experiences too.
yes, thank you for having me on your show. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.